Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Where Do We Begin, where we've got a preview of what's to come today, including the athletics, and we've actually got a big athletics interview in the middle, jam-packed with awesome analysis from our expert guest. But first, recapping a day 6 yesterday, that made all us Aussies back here feel all warm and fuzzy and had so many happy moments. One of those happy moments, Jess Fox finally winning her Olympic gold, which was so good to see. 25 million Australians just ecstatic for her, really. So she won gold in the C1 canoe slalom. Jess Fox, I'm sure you've all heard about it before. She's won 11 world championships, the K1 silver in London and Rio, bronze in Tuesday's K1 in Tokyo, of course. This C1, she was the world number one. She was expected to win, but she actually threw up right before it. But anyway, obviously, she won the gold, but it wasn't always looking like that because Team GB's Mallory Franklin, she was looking pretty good. She was in first right up until Jess took to the water. Mallory Franklin got 108.68 seconds, which included a 2-second penalty. And the German, Andrea Herzog, was second up until Jess took to the water. Like I said, Jess went last. Absolutely smashed it. Won it by over 3 seconds, 105.04. Brilliant stuff. Emotional scenes afterwards. Interview with her dad, Richard. What a commentator he is. What a guy he is. And her mum as well just seems like a legend. The coach, of course, and Jess herself. What an inspiration. What an all-round inspirational legend, inspirational person. What an amazing woman. She's the first Jewish Australian to win Olympic gold, and she, is there anything wrong about her? She just seems like the perfect human. I was having a look at her Wikipedia page, 99.18er. Is there anything she's not good at? I don't know, really, but we'll move on because there are some other medals to talk about on the Aussie side of things. Zach Stubblety-Cook, he competed in the 200-metre breaststroke yesterday. No Aussie man had won breaststroke gold since the last Olympic Games in Tokyo, all the way back in 1964, a full 57 years ago. That was the great man, Ian O'Brien. I've got to say, big Zachy boy, he wasn't looking too good after 50 metres. He was in 6th place as he touched the end and he turned around over the next 100 metres, caught up a bit. He was third. With one lap to go, or the last 50 metres to go, And he said afterwards he executed his race plan to perfection. He caught up with the Dutchman Arno Kaminga and obviously won the gold. Him and Arno Kaminga actually were a dead heat in the heats. So they've had a bit of a rivalry going throughout these games. So Stubblety-Cook ended up finishing in 2 minutes 6.38 seconds and Kaminga 2 minutes 7.01 seconds. So yeah, it was 0.63 seconds difference in the end. That's the 8th Aussie gold of the games. So now Australia 5th in the medal tally. We're hovering around that kind of 5th, 6th mark. Basically the whole time we've been around there. So China, Japan, the US and the Russian Olympic Committee ahead of us. China, Japan, US, they've basically been the top three the whole time. But there were more medals yesterday. No more gold medals, but medals that still made us all feel good back here in Australia. Kyle Chalmers in the 100-metre freestyle. So he didn't perform too well in the semi-final by his own admissions. He was 6th best. So that meant he started in lane 7 in this final. He started well in the first 50 metres, but then a bit of analysis from my mate Thorpe, Ian Thorpe in the commentary box. He was talking about how Kyle Chalmers usually breathes on his right, but in the last 50 metres, the big rival, Caleb Dressel, the American, was on his left. So in the last 50 metres, he couldn't see where Caleb Dressel was while he was breathing. Dressel's like a legend of the sport, if you didn't know. He's a powerhouse of the all swimming, really, but the 100-metre freestyle, especially 8 medals and 6 golds in the 2019 World Championships the big American had. Chalmers ended up getting silver. He was really, really close, actually. 47.08 seconds, just 0.06 of a second off Dressel, who got the world record. And it was good to see Chalmers not giving himself crap for losing. He was content with the result, seemingly. That's what he that was what the perception was from the post-race interview. He said he gave it his all. He was happy with it, couldn't have done much more, left it all in the pool, and I guess the better swimmer, the deserving man, won in Caleb Dressel. So good on Kyle Chalmers. Seems like a top bloke. And one more medal for yesterday for the Australians. The women's 4x200 metre freestyle. The team with heavy favourites coming into this one. The fastest qualifiers. The qualifiers were actually a completely different group of women. Molly O'Callaghan, Brianna Throssell, Meg Harrison, Tamsin Cook, they swam the first race in the heats. 7 minutes 44.61 seconds. They were the best by nearly a full 3 seconds. And 17-year-old Molly O'Callaghan, actually her leg ended up, would have been better than everyone's, bar Titmus's in the final. So Titmus started off things for the girls in the pool in the 4x200 metre freestyle, followed by Emma McKeon, Maddie Wilson and Leah Neal. Leah Neal's only race at the Olympics, actually. They ended up swimming the final in 7:41.29. So China won it, about a second ahead of Australia. And Katie Ledecky, how amazing is she? Her final leg nearly saw the USA catch up to China and win gold, but they were just 0.4 of a second off. And it was the second fastest relay split that Ledecky's ever swum. So phenomenal stuff. But there was a bit of controversy around changing the team and putting Titmus first in the relay. Perhaps things could have been different, but I guess we'll never know. Hey, but I've got to say, just before we get into our interview, I just love the Olympics, and it's not just because it's all action, all sport for a good 2 and a bit weeks, but the positivity around it. I feel like it's probably not really talked about enough. Firstly, Japan doing really well on home soil. That's definitely not talked about enough by the Aussie media. They've got other things on their mind, clearly. But it's great to see a country that's been hit hard by COVID kind of have something to feel good about with their all their athletes doing very well. Where are they at the moment? I think they're still second. They're still second in the medal tally. But some more positivity. I love about the Olympics is that you never really see much barracking against or hating a particular athlete or a particular team. It's always just supporting your own country and supporting your own team, supporting your own athlete, all Australians, whoever they are, whatever their background is, whatever their religion is, whatever their appearance is, wherever they've come from, doesn't matter. Like, the Australian teams come from all over the place. Jess Fox, she was born in France. She's Jewish, first Olympic Jewish gold medalist in Australian history, as I said. And then completely different background. Jianfeng Lei, the table tennis player, 48 years old, mother of 2, born in China, moved to Australia in her late teens. And she was killing it, got knocked out a couple of days ago, but had a pretty fairy tale run. And then you've got someone like Kyle Chalmers from Port Lincoln in South Australia. So it just shows the diversity of it, and all of Australia getting around basically every athlete. I'm sure there's a bit of negativity here and there, but it's overwhelming positivity, which I absolutely love. There are stories like that for every country, I am sure. But it's just great to see from an Australian perspective. And something big that's happening today, the athletics are actually kicking off in the Olympics. We've got lots of Aussies in action. And we've got an expert guest on the show, an expert guest we haven't seen yet on the show. He actually writes and works for Athletics Australia. He's called Lachie Moorhouse. He was a great guy to talk to. He gave really in-depth, cracking analysis of all the athletics, all the little facts and tidbits and kind of tactics that you'll need to know. So I'll hand it over to myself, who's going to introduce Lachie Moorhouse again. Now, the athletics are all kicking off today. I'm super excited for it. And with us on the show to talk to us all about it is a guy by the name of Lachie Moorhouse. He's an expert in athletics. And thanks so much for coming on, Lachie. Welcome to the show. Tell me, how pumped are you feeling right now?
Thanks for having me, Harper. Pleased to be here, mate. And, I'm excited. I mean, it's been a long time coming. Obviously, the Olympic cycle is long enough with 4 years, but extra year with COVID, I mean, it's dragged it on. And, it doesn't even feel real. I mean, recently I was up at the holding camp in Cairns, and it didn't even feel real that the athletes they were actually going, and just to see them all over there, getting videos of the Olympic Stadium and stuff. It's sick, man. And I'm so happy for them. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, neither can I, and neither can many of our listeners and viewers, I reckon. But just kind of in fresh news to start us off. There's been a bit of a COVID scare that just kind of emerged yesterday with the US pole vaulter, Sam Kendricks. That's forced a few Aussies into isolation.
Yeah, that's right, mate. I mean, technically all the procedures and stuff with the Australian Olympic Committee. So obviously me with Athletes Australia, I'm not too obliged to comment on the whole proceedings and stuff. But I mean, just in general, Sam Kendricks, the US pole vaulter, so they've got daily testing over there as part of their COVID protocols. And so he had his test in the morning, and then I believe he went to training and interacted with a few athletes. And later that day it came out that he was actually positive for COVID, so he's had to withdraw from the games. But a few Australian athletes kind of got caught up in it, but they're all good now. So they were forced into kind of like isolation, but they're all good to compete now. So there'll be no change to the program.
Yeah, okay, cool. That's good to hear from an Aussie side of things. And speaking of an Aussie side of things, some people have laid the track team the best for generations and generations, many, many years. So can you tell us who are the kind of medal hopefuls that we're looking forward to seeing?
Oh, mate. Oh, man, it's pretty exciting. I mean, first of all, it's our biggest team ever, in Olympic track and field. We had 64 athletes, and then unfortunately Dane had to withdraw, so back down to 63. But I think
Dane
something
being, just quickly, Dane being
Dane Bird Smith, race walker. So he actually won bronze at the 2016 Rio Olympics in the 20-kilometre race walk, but he just had some family problems. So he was literally up in the holding camp, ready to go, and unfortunately had to pull out. But so we're back to 63 athletes now, and I think one thing Australians really struggle to grasp the athletics is, context is key with any sport. And, to come from the swimming where we're winning medals in just about every event, and then we go to athletics and people expect, our athletes to win medals in just about every event. I think people need to understand just how hard it is as a sport, and just in our history, like for someone to come from Australia and win a medal, it's a really big deal. In saying that, we do have a few. I'll start us off with Nicola McDermott, the Australian high jumper. So she's got, at the Nationals this year, she became the first. At Nationals this year, she became the first Australian woman to jump over 2 metres. Cleared 2 metres in the national final, and since then she went to the Stockholm Diamond League and cleared 2.01 metres out of the centimetre on, and had a good look at 2:03. So she's flying at the moment. She's actually got the third highest jump in the world this year, and only 4 women in the world this year have jumped over 2 metres, and Nicola's done it twice. So, I mean, you'd have to be putting her in there as one of our best chances. I mean, she'll line up alongside Eleanor Patterson, who is also in the women's high jump for Australia. She's the former national record holder at 1.99 metres. So Australian high jump's in a really good spot. If you look at the men's as well, we've got Brandon Stark, who's the equal Australian record holder, and I think only 3 men have jumped higher than him this year. So it's a good point to start with the high jumpers. But yeah, I'd be pointing towards Nicola McDermott. I mean, I think she's flying, and she's actually, her processes when you watch her jump and her routine, it's faultless. And I think the big stage and the Olympic occasion won't overwhelm her. So she's one I'd really look to. I mean, the name on everyone's lips is Stuart McSwain. Everyone wants to know what he can do. I mean, he is now our greatest middle distance runner ever. I mean, for a long time there, I'd say people were debating between him and Mottram, and but I think it's pretty comfortable to say he's our best ever now. I mean, just last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, he ran 3:29.51. So the first Australian man to run under 3:30, 1,500 metres, national record. I think he's broken 6 now. And he also ran a really quick mile time, which is the fastest in the world since 2014. So, yes, I think what people need to look for with Stewie is just the way the races are run. So Stewie's really he's really established himself on the world scene as a front runner. So what Stewie likes is he likes an even pace. He doesn't like to leave it to a kick down finish, because if Stewie's there with a few other guys with 300 metres to go, there's a fair chance they've got a better finish than him. So Stewie's really established himself as a front runner. He goes off the front, he takes it on, and that's how he's really made his craft as one of the best runners in the world. But the thing about the Olympics is it's not always like that. I mean, the men's 1,500 in Rio was run slower. That you'd see teenagers run quicker than that at school meets. So that's going to be the biggest challenge for Stewie. Is I almost think that his best chance is in the final if he can navigate the heats and the semi, because once he gets to the final, everyone's going to be going for it. But in the heats and the semis, people tend to try and save a few bickies for the final. So I think Stewie, what he's going to have to do, and he's really smart now. I know, personally talking to his coach, Nick Beddoe, people say Olympic finals are slow or Olympic heats and semis, they're slow. But if you've got one of the best runners in the world, and if you understand how good Stewie is, I just really can't see him leaving it to chance. I mean, he's not just going to watch a bunch of blokes jog around for 3 laps and then kick away from him. He's gonna have something to say about it, and I think that's why he's one of our best medal chances. So, he's one of 3 athletes we've got in the 1500 with Ollie Hoare and Jai Edwards, who are equally, very good athletes in their own right. Ollie is he beat Stewie earlier in the year at the Gateshead Diamond League, so that was a really good run. If you just look at that kind of form line, but both very capable athletes in their own right. And I think one of the interesting things about this race is, depending on how it's run, we've got chances across the board. I mean, Jai tends to wind it up a bit more, whereas Stewie's a good front runner and Ollie can kind of do it how he likes. So, I think the men's 1500's got to be in the discussion. And then one that's not often talked about is the women's javelin. I mean, Kelsey Lee Barber, 2019 world champion, and most people probably haven't even heard her name. I mean, in the lead up to the Olympics, she's the reigning world champion. She's got a good record, and her and Catherine Mitchell and Mackenzie Little all in the javelin, but mainly Kelsey Lee Barber and Catherine Mitchell, that they'd be 2 genuine medal contenders. I mean, Catherine's been throwing really well, so she won the national championships. She's the Australian record holder. And, when I was up in Cairns, she was in ripping form, so looking strong and looking healthy. So I think the main thing about medal contenders is the field events tend to be a lot more unpredictable than the track events. Track events, if there's, say if there's a track race, you can see it kind of unfolds over time. And whereas field events, it's just kind of, you're competing against people, but you're throwing on your own. Like, the throw is purely a reflection of your performance and, what you can muster on the day. So I think the field events are a lot more unpredictable. And you can imagine that pressure, like for a lot of the distance athletes and stuff, they're kind of just getting dragged along. It's, it's just second nature. They're used to racing like that. But if you're standing at the top of the pole vault straight and you've got to do it all by yourself, and, if you've got mental demons or whatever, it's just, even though you've done it 100,000 times before, it's just in your head. So I think that's why the field events are a lot more unpredictable. So a few sneaky chances there. And also Ash Maloney in the decathlon. So he's 21 years old, but in December of last year, he broke the Australian record with a point score of 8,492. So as I said, it was in December of last year, but if that was, 12 days later and it was in 2021, it would be one of the best scores in the world. So he's always a chance, and I know he's really ripping and ready to go.
Yeah, that's phenomenal and very exciting to hear for all fans of the Australian team, I bet. But I just want to mention one more thing about the 1500 before we move on. I heard this in passing the other day, not totally sure if it's right, but is there a bit of a big name that pulled out of that?
Yeah, Taufik Makloufi. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but he's got a long history. I mean, he's kind of a controversial figure. A lot of people say Algeria, I think.
Right, okay.
So kind of his history is that he kind of had a real upset in London 2012. He won gold, I think, and then Rio, I think he might have won silver. Or he's got a bag of Olympic medals, and he, I think a lot of people just see him as a blatant drug cheat who hasn't been caught, like has got it figured out. And there's some of the stuff he's done. If you have a look at his record, it's superhuman, and I think a lot of athletes have started to speak out against him. And I know one athlete came out and posted a photo on Twitter of a bunch of like little vials and stuff and syringes that were in his bag, and kind of tried to expose him. And then, the wider dealings kind of proved that it was nothing illegal. He's pulled out with a knee injury, but I think it's just kind of the added fuel to the fire as a bit of a controversial figure in the athletics world.
Oh, yeah, that's an amazing story. I had no idea about that, but some of the stories that go on in the athletics world, especially, some crazy stuff happening over there. But a couple kind of athletes that listeners to the show will have particular interest in. Firstly, Brooke Stratton, also Jai Edwards. But can we speak about Brooke Stratton, the long jumper? So she's the Australian record holder for women, some crazy number, 7+ meters, I think. So can you tell us a bit about her hopes in the games?
Yeah, look, so Brooke is the Australian record holder, as you said, 7.05 meters, which is a fair jump. And I mean, I think the most promising thing about Brooke is she's really come back into a good rich vein of form this year. She jumped, I think her season best is 6.84 metres, but she jumped that in the national final, which is the most important meet she's had this year. So that kind of shows, to me, it indicates that, she comes to play when it matters. And she also finished in 7th place at the Rio Olympics, which, that's a really good result at the end of the day if you're finishing 7th in the Olympic final. So in terms of Brooke's chances, I think she needs to be jumping in that 7 metre range. But as I mentioned, if these field events at the Olympic Games, anything can happen. So for Brooke to be in, she's in a rich vein of form. She knows she can jump well. I think personally for her, she'd be looking to jump back in that 7 metre range just because her PB is from 2016, I think. So, it's a long time to be chipping away. So you get a big comp like this. I think that's when she'll want to execute.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be an absolute ripper of an event. But as promised, talk a bit about Jai Edwards. So 1,500 metre runner, qualified for the Olympics by beating Stewie McSwain in a pretty phenomenal race and used the tactic that you were talking about exactly just before. So what are his chances like in the 1,500 metres?
Yeah, I think the thing about Jai is you don't want to put a limit on him. I mean, he's proven so many people like this year, just his progression line, like every time he runs a PB, you kind of think that's got to be as good as he can get. And then the next race he'll run another one and he just keeps getting better and better. And I know he's got a long history of a few injury troubles and whatnot. And it's just awesome to see him this year piecing together a solid training block because it's just showing how good he can be. I mean, I think it's important to note that a few years ago he did run 3:41. Like this might have been 3 or 4 years ago. So he's not just some slouch that's come out of nowhere. He's a genuine talent. But to see him go to that next level this year, I think his most impressive race was the Oslo Dream Mile, where he ran 3:49.27, third fastest mile in Australian history. But that's just awesome for him to see. And I think personally, I was at the 1,500 national final and I kind of was watching. I knew Stewie was going to get after it because he's, at the end of the day, as I mentioned to you before, Stewie's trying to get ready for the Olympics, all right? So he's not necessarily fussed about winning a national title. He's trying to get his body ready to go off the front and do it the hard way and then back it up because he's trying to get ready for the Olympics. That's his bigger picture. But I thought he'd do it easily. So he went off the front. I saw Jai go with him and I thought, gee, how long's this going to last? And I was on the finish line as they went through, rang the bell, and Jai wouldn't have blown out a candle. He looked so good. And he's just such a smooth mover. And I just thought he's the real deal. And, he came, even at the top of the straight, I thought, Jai's looking good, but surely he can't beat Stewie. And, he just proved too strong and just kind of the reaction from the crowd because everyone, I think, has got an appreciation for how good Stewie is. So if you want to earn your stripes in the Australian athletics scene, I think you go past Stewie in the home straight of a national final and you're well and truly there.
Yeah, I'm probably a bit biased here, but I think Jai could well have the potential to be one of those athletes who Australia just falls in love with within the space of a few days. But an event that everyone really loves here in Australia, not one that we've particularly performed well in over the years, but it's the 100-metre sprint. It's just awesome, frenetic, like super quick stuff, obviously, to watch. Tell us a bit about that. Bit of a preview for that?
Yeah, definitely. So we've got one athlete in each of the men's and women's 100 metres. So we got Rowan Browning in the men's who, it's hard not to be excited about him. He's 23, and he's just come out this year and he's done some, I think it's hard to measure what a lot of these athletes have done on Australian soil. I mean, even if you look at Peter Bowl and those guys and a few of the other guys who have, Nina Kennedy in the pole vault, these guys who are doing these amazing performances on Australian soil in empty stadiums with not much competition. I mean, it's hard to put into context like how hard that is to do. So, just back to the 100 metres. I mean, Rowan's been running and he's been running consistently well, which I think is the best thing. And he's just got this air of confidence about him where, he's so comfortable in his own ability and what he can do. And, I was listening to an interview with him up in Cairns and he just said, what are you hoping for Tokyo? And he said, well, first of all, I want to break 10 seconds and I think I can challenge for the Australian record. And I think the thing that stuck with me, he said he wants to win every race he's in, or at least he wants to try and win every race he's in. I mean, to have an Australian 100-metre sprinter saying that going to Olympics is just, it's been a long time since we've had someone who, kind of has that ability who, he's run sub 10 seconds, but it was windy. But I mean, some of the runs he's had in the low 10-second range, just consistently, not huge wins. I think he's one that's just going to fly. Like, I think he'll go well under 10 seconds. I don't know if he'll get the Australian record of 9.93, but I'd definitely look for him to feature. Definitely past the heats and hopefully deep into the semis and maybe the final. But at the end of the day, the 100 metres is the fastest man on the planet. And, I mean, that's kind of what I touched on earlier. You don't want people to be discouraged about Rowan. If he doesn't make the 100-metre final, he's still a generational talent and one of the best we've ever had. So, I think people need to put some respect on that name. But in terms of the women, Hannah Basic, she's a star, mate. Leading into this year, I was having a look at her IAAF profile before, actually. So in 2014, her 100-metre PB was 11.64. In early 2020, she broke that for the first time in 6 years, running 11.63. And then this season, she's run 6 personal bests to go from 11.63 to 11.16, and the 4th fastest woman in Australian history. So what she's been able to do is incredible, mate. I mean, the way she puts it, she was just doing life for a few years in her early 20s and doing what people do. She went to Europe, partied, did whatnot, and she's come back and she's just looked so good. And honestly, one of the most incredible things I think about her season is how long she's been going for. I think she started her season, probably it wasn't even that late last year. It might have been, November or something. I think to have that consistent patch, to be racing throughout all the way into throughout the domestic season and into Europe, just shows how strong she is. And I mean, once again, so Australian record in that event, Melissa Breen, 11.11. She's at 11.16. And I mean, if you've already shaved off half a second off your PB, what's 0.05? So, she's so exciting and, still young, might be 25, but she's one to watch, definitely.
And just quickly, from the men's and women's side of things, on an international scale, who are the standouts, the absolute favourites to win the final for the 100 metres?
Well, in the men's, the US guys they're flying. The US have 3 guys who are all pretty good. And in the women's, you've obviously got Sha'Carri Richardson, who the US trials she was flying, and then has actually been banned for marijuana use in competition. So she's not there. So Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price would probably have to be a good chance there. Take your pick from the US blokes, and there's a South African guy, Simbini, who's pretty good. But I'd probably be raffling off the US blokes. They're pretty quick. Yeah, their 4x1 will fly.
Yeah. Looking forward to watching that very much. And speaking of looking forward to things to watch, obviously events kicking off today. Anything particular that we should be keeping our eye on?
Oh, definitely, mate. I mean, first day of the Olympic athletics schedule. I mean, it's hard not to be excited. So, I mean, as I mentioned, so today, first up, 10 a.m. It's important to note that the timetables have been shuffling around a bit. So I'd encourage people to just keep an eye on, the Tokyo app or even Athletics Australia social. They'll have the correct timetable. So, you don't want to be missing your favourite athlete. But the 3,000 metre steeplechase. So we've got Matt Clark, Ed Trippus and Ben Buckingham. So Matty Clark, a lot of people know his story. He missed out by 0.1 of a second at the qualifier, and he'd also missed out by 1 quota position. So his Olympic dream had missed. He was literally the stiffest you could be and missing out for the Olympics. Had pretty much all closed. He wasn't going, and he'd agreed to be a guide runner for Jared Clifford at the Paralympics. Jared's legally blind, and they have guide runners, and Clarkie had agreed to. Obviously, Jared's pretty quick, so Clarkie had agreed to guide him around the track. And then, a few days later, news came through that someone had pulled out, and Clarkie was the next guy in. So I think for him to even be on the start line, he's just like, he's already won over a lot of people in the Australian athletics community. So it's just good to see him there. I mean, then you got Ed Trippus, who US-based Australian, goes to Princeton University, qualified with 2.5 hours to go in the qualifying period. Clutch as they come. So he'll have a cool head on his shoulders. I think he's easily got the best time. I think he ran 8:19.6. So he's got a good couple of seconds on the other blokes. But Ben Buckingham, he's been our premier steeplechase man for a while. He's pretty slick. So those 3 will go all right. Qualifying for the high jump, Brandon Stark. So the way qualifying works for these field events is they have an automatic standard, which is usually the Olympic qualifier. So if you hit that in qualifying, you automatically go through. The general case is people don't hit that qualifying standard and they take the 12 best performances. So the 12 highest jumps, the 12 furthest throws. So that's the way qualifying works. So for a lot of our field event athletes like Brandon Stark, Matt Denny, they shouldn't have trouble tomorrow. For them, it's just, go out there, a bit of a simulation of, what the day looks like and, hopefully wrap it up and get on ice for the final. We've also got round one of the women's 800 metres. Kat Bissett and Morgan Mitchell. I think Kat Bissett's the one. She's really one to watch here. This year she's taken it to another level. She's run 4 sub-2 runs in a row, which for Australian women used to be the real standard. If you could run sub-2, you were the best in the country, and we'll put you forward on the world stage. And she's just done it 4 times in a row, including a 1:58.09 national record. So, she's got the 9th fastest time in the world this year. She's one to watch, and she's been business this year, which I've really liked. she's such a lovely person, but when she races, she gets this real game face and kind of, really locks in, which is, it's good to watch. She's pretty aggressive. So, and then obviously Morgan Mitchell, who qualified last minute, proved her fitness and held her spot. All props to her. Hannah Basic, one we just touched on before, she'll be rolling around first round of the women's 100. It's a 100-metre race. What more can you analyse? She's just going to load herself into the blocks and rip down the straight as quick as she can. And, I think the way she's been going, throughout the season, her consistency really speaks to, her preparation. And I think today should be no different. In the night session, we've just got the women's 5,000 metres. So Izzy Bat-Doyle, Rose Davies and Jenny Blundell. So I think Izzy's the strongest of these athletes. She's been putting in some incredible work over in St. Moritz with Rose is also there, but some of Izzy's work, I think she's putting in 160 Ks a week at altitude, doing 2 hours on every Sunday. Her training, and I've watched a few of her races just in the lead up, and she's been solo. She's been out in front on her own, and she's just looked so calm and composed that I think she's going to be probably our best chance there. Rose Davies has been thereabouts with Izzy. Obviously, they both train under, they both travel together, so they've been racing together. And then Jenny Blundell, who clocked 15:10 and got a quota position in the end. So, it's a solid 5,000 metre lineup tonight. On the world stage, when you look at some of those East Africans and stuff, it's incredibly hard to compete. So once again, just be looking for context in these ones. And, in a history of Australian performances, I think that's important to where do we slot people in and manage our expectations of these three. And then we got the 10,000 metre final. Pat Tiernan is the only one that goes around there. Stuart McSwain obviously qualified, but chose to run the 1,500 metres. So Pat is doing the 10,000 metre double. He's obviously got the hard one first, the 10,000 metres, but he's the Australian record holder. He beat Stuart McSwain's time, I think around 27:22 maybe. You have to double check that, but he's a class act. And straight final for the 10,000 metre men. You wouldn't want to run 2 of those.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be awesome, an awesome day and night of action today. And, awesome athletics analysis from you, Matt. Really appreciate it, really in-depth. Great to kind of know bit of the stories behind all the individual athletes. But just before I let you go, we've been running a few socials, questions of the day, and asking them to our expert guests. So you can reply to this on all our socials at WDWB Pod. The question today for you, Lachie, and all our listeners and viewers. So there obviously has been no athletics so far, but who has been the athlete in the games that you have just loved watching so far in the Olympics?
Oh, mate, got to go with Paddy Mills. I think what he's been able to do, I think it's easy with sports where you see him compete for, say an NBA team, and then you see him compete for Australia. And I think Paddy Mills is a guy who just goes to another level for his country. And I think that's what the Olympics is about. And if some of our athletes could summon that kind of spirit and that kind of pride, they'll go a long way this week.
Yes, so many to list off. Make sure you let us know. Paddy Mills, obviously one of them. And like I said, so many. Just one last thing. Where can people find your work, Lachie?
Mainly Athletics Australia, mate. Maybe a few sneaky tweets here and there, but mainly stick to the AA socials. Won't have much time to be tweeting personal stuff over the next few weeks. So I think mainly just if listeners are from other sports or whatever, make sure I think people kind of tune into the athletics at the Olympics and then kind of tune out for another 4 years. So make sure you stick at it and follow the socials, and you can follow these athletes and their journeys, because there's some really good stories there.
Yeah, really good it is to get to know the backstories behind individual athletes. It really kind of makes it more special when you see them, whether they win or not. It just, really makes it just a much better event to watch, in my opinion. And I reckon it's just a fact, really. But that just about wraps us up, I reckon. Lachie, thanks very much for coming on, mate.
Too easy, mate. Thanks for having me, and look forward to it.
Thanks very much again, Lachie, for coming on the show. Definitely in the top 2 Lachies we've had on the show. I won't diss my co-host, but Lachie Moorhouse was very, very good. Lachie Gibbs definitely could not give athletics analysis anything like that. I'm really looking forward to the athletics today. I hope all you guys are too. Lachie gave you the big preview for the athletics, told you when all the big events were on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you the preview for all the other events that you might have an interest in. Not every single Australian event, but the major ones. So I'm going to just go in the order of the times from the morning, Australian Eastern Standard Time, all of these times. So the Kookaburras, they've been absolutely killing it so far, off to an undefeated start. They're coming up against Spain in another pool match at 11 a.m. Hopefully they can keep this run going, because I've got to say the world number one's looking very, very good for a medal, hopefully a gold medal in this Olympic Games. And in the rowing, we've seen some good action in the rowing a couple of days ago, but we've got the women's 8 and the men's 8. They're representing Australia in the finals, the women at 11:05 a.m. and the men at 11:25 a.m. So could be another shot to boost our medal tally, which would be very, very nice. But like I said, with the whole positivity thing before, it's not like Kyle Chalmers and the 4x200 meter freestyle team. They really showed that it's not all about winning, that you can be content with silver or bronze. It's still an amazing, amazing achievement, as cliche as it is, but honestly, it's true. And I'll keep going. I'll keep pushing on, because I'm straying a bit from the preview here. In the BMX, the other day we saw Saya Sakikabara and Lauren Reynolds. They got through to the semi-finals, and they'll be in those semi-finals at 11:15 a.m. If they get through them, they'll be in the final at 12:50 p.m. I love a bit of BMX myself, so I'll definitely be tuning in to the semi-final, and if they qualify, the final. And the rugby sevens, Australia looking to defend their title. The Australian women, they're playing the US at 11:30 a.m. and hopefully, probably, they'll be through to the quarterfinals at 6:30 p.m. later on tonight. In the swing, what all of you guys want to know, we've only got one final featuring any Aussies, I think. So it's at 11:59 a.m., just a tick before midday. Emma McKeon and Kate Campbell in the women's 100-metre freestyle. So that's the only final featuring any Aussies today, I believe. So we've got more action in the water. It's not just the swimming. We've got the Aussie Sharks, the men's water polo team, coming up against Spain at 12:30 p.m. Just half an hour after midday. The Sharks came off a bit of a disappointing result last night. They were blown away by Serbia in that first half, especially. They were 10-1 down at one point. Came back a bit to there was a 14-8 loss in the end, but Serbia, absolute powerhouses, and I'm sure the Sharks would be content with would have been content with the position they're in at the start of the tournament, because they did have a very good win against Croatia 8-5 the other night. And I've got to apologise, got to make an apology. I said Lucien Dalfor was going to be in action yesterday in yesterday's podcast, but that was my mistake. He's actually in action today in the K1 semi-final at 3:51 p.m. If he gets through to the final, that will be at 5 p.m. So we could see some more canoe slalom medal action for the Aussies, because he did qualify third fastest out of anyone for that K1 semi-final. Lucien, of course, a friend of the show. You can hear his goals for the games in the back catalogue, just released a couple days ago, and his full episode, even if you want. That was an absolute cracker. Lucien's a top guy. And Ash Barty and John Pearce actually had a mixed doubles game just last night. They beat the Greeks, Stefanos Tsitsipas and Maria Sakkari, actually went down to the wire, match tiebreak last night. They're aiming for the second Aussie tennis Olympic medal in the history of Aussie Olympic tennis. So they'll be coming up against Andrei Rublev and Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova at 4 p.m. in the semi-final. Obviously get through to the final, fingers crossed, but anything can happen in this tournament, as Courtney Walsh has said, and as we've really learned with some of the shock results we've had in the singles and the doubles and even the mixed doubles. And moving on, later on tonight, we've got a big quarter-final action in the football. The Matildas, the Olyroos are gone, but the Matildas are still going strong. They're in the quarter-final against Team GB, Great Britain, at 7 p.m. in Kashima, and the semi-finals on Monday. So hopefully they can get through to that, and once they get into the semi-final, they'll have a shot at the medal, because even if they lose that, they'll be in the bronze medal match. So, very, very nervous and exciting times for fans of Aussie football. And then final one to keep your eye on, the Opals. They're looking to bounce back after a pretty disappointing defeat to Belgium the other night. They're playing China at 10 p.m. Prime time, that one is. But I'll watch the Olympics all through the day, just like I'm sure many of you will. That is just about me for the day. I hope you like this slightly different version of Tokyo Daily. I've kind of given you just the best of the stuff. Haven't given you as much information as before, but I've given you all the key information that you need to know. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. You know how to support the show. Subscribe, that's an important one. Like, that is also an important one. Reviewing, we love a bit of reviewing. Sharing, following at WB Pod. Check out the question of the day, which is, of course, who has been your favourite athlete throughout the games. Hard to go past Arnie Titmus, of course, but Paddy Mills, like Lachie said, has been a cracker. That's me. Thank you very much for watching or listening wherever you are, guys. I'll see you in another Tokyo Daily episode, same time tomorrow.